You'll probably get a little pop-up. All right, welcome those of you who are joining us now, also via YouTube. So again, I'm Jamie Vibach, the Will County Director with the Conservation Foundation. If you have a question, please go ahead and use that Q&A box. That lets everybody see your question and also makes it easier for us to find them all. Questions can sometimes get lost in the chat, so we will make sure to answer as many of them as we can at the end of the presentation. And for your safety, you should only be able to see what I post in the chat, but just in case I missed a setting, please don't click on any links other than what I may post. On the Conservation Foundation side of things, these webinars are offered to the public for free, but we do encourage you to consider a donation or membership. The more people we have attending and the more webinars that we do, the more it costs us to run them. So at the end of the webinar, you will be taken to a page with a bunch of resources, things you might be interested in, including our virtual tip jar. So if you're enjoying these webinars, I do encourage you to donate to help keep us running. This also makes you a member so you can enjoy our wide variety of members only stuff. So as those of you who've been joining us for a while know, we've been doing these every Monday and Thursday. And again, as I mentioned, we're gonna keep doing these for the foreseeable future. As long as you keep attending, we'll keep doing them. So I am putting together the schedule now for July. So if anybody has any topics that they're really have a burning desire to see us cover, let me know in the chat, send me an email, and I will be happy to try and put something together for that for you. Next week, on Monday, June 15th, we're going to be joined by Jennifer Hammer, TCF staff, who handles a lot of our watershed things. She's going to be talking about healthy streams, healthy communities. So how do we know if our streams are clean? How can you help to keep your local rivers and streams clean? And then on Thursday, June 18th, we'll be joined by another TCF staffer, Nancy Sonatl, another new face. And she's going to be talking about native landscape design. So as I've mentioned, I know my plants. I am not an artist. I'm not a landscape designer. So that's why I haven't really talked about that in any of my webinars, but Nancy is. So she's going to be covering some design aspects. And so you're putting your native plants in. How do you design those gardens? So it should be really good. And I'm looking forward to that one. Love Nancy. So that is it from our side of things. So without further ado, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Adam with the International Dark Sky Association. Take it away, Adam.
Well, hi, Jamie, and hello to our audience. Thanks so much for the invitation to speak on behalf of the International Dark Sky Association today. It's truly a privilege. This is my first Zoom webinar. Typically I present live or on the radio, so I'm not really sure where to look, but hopefully everybody will be able to see me well and hear me well. I'm not an astronomer. I'm not an astrophysicist. I'm just a regular guy who decided to do what I can to, I guess, help improve our ability to see the dark sky and the stars and so on and so forth. I love nature, which includes nature at night. And for all of you that joined us today on such a sunny day, you might have a very good clear night tonight, so to maybe go outside and see some of those stars. So certainly I encourage you to. I'm going to try to get a PowerPoint up here, and that may be in of itself a challenge. Oh. Okay. Jamie, can you see that all right?
No, I see it says Adam has started screen sharing, but I'm not seeing your presentation yet. Maybe stop and try it again.
All right. Did it come up?
Not yet. Oh, we had this working yesterday. If you can't get it, I can get it on my end.
Yeah, why don't you try on your end?
Okay.
Let's see if we can.
How's that?
Is it coming up? Good.
There we go. Just let me know when to advance then.
Okay. Terrific. All right, well, hopefully everybody can see it now.
Are you seeing it okay?
Yes, I can see it, but are you going to be able to move the slides for me?
Yes, I can. Just tell me when.
Okay, well, can we, let's start right here. This is as good as any slide. So who is the International Dark Sky Association? Jamie, why don't we go to the next slide? As you can see, the International Dark Sky Association works globally. Since 1988, almost 35 years ago, the IDA has been a non-for-profit. It's the recognized authority on light pollution. It's the leading organization on combating light pollution worldwide. Currently, we have 64 chapters operating in 18 countries. And currently, the IDA reaches 51 countries. The IDA currently has 133 IDA certified dark sky places. So that includes parks and other places, 133 already, which is phenomenal. One of IDA's goals is to reduce light pollution and to promote responsible outdoor lighting. We're all about outdoor lighting. We're not about indoor lighting. Outdoor lighting that is beautiful, healthy, and functional. You can see behind me that I have a dark sky compliant lamp shining on my head. Certainly that's one of the things we'll be talking about today. There are more than 1,000 dark sky lighting fixtures, 1,000 dark sky lighting fixtures that are available in the marketplace currently. All of them as beautiful as any non-IDA compliant dark sky fixtures that you might currently be using. Can we go to the next slide, Jamie? So typically when I'm live, I like to show some videos. For example, the one that you would be looking at now is a 6-minute video regarding losing the dark, which is a video that's specific to Chicago. But because of the Zoom format, we're not going to do that. I'm afraid my laptop might melt down, and then we'll go completely dark. So I thought maybe instead of showing a 6-minute video, Jamie, if you don't mind, maybe you can share with us as a member of our audience a dark sky experience, or maybe something that you enjoy about the dark sky.
Yeah, sure. So probably my most vivid memory of dark skies is my parents own a cabin in northern Wisconsin, and it's right on a lake, and it's in the middle of the Nicolet National Forest, and it's just gorgeous up there. But one of the biggest differences I noticed, even as a kid, was just how many more stars there were up there. You know, as we were talking in the beginning here, I can identify a handful of constellations, but up there, I can't find them. There are just too many stars. And it always makes me think, you know, way back in the early days with the shepherds and the goat herds that, you know, were sitting out watching their flocks, creating all of these constellations up there and identifying how did they even do it? Because there's just, there are so many stars up there. You know, how can you pick out this one and this one and this one? Because there are just a gazillion of them. So,
Yeah.
and it was really the first time I had to see the Milky Way as well. You know, you kind of think you see it here, you really don't though. I mean, up there, it's like, oh yeah, there it is.
Well, when I was a kid, I lived in rural Michigan, and I was outside quite a bit. My parents locked the doors and threw me outside. So whether I was biking or swimming in a lake or whatever the case might have been at any given time during a beautiful night, you could look up and you could see, you know, all these stars, hundreds of stars. And, you know, sometimes it was nice just to lay down on the dock near the lake where we lived and look up and enjoy the stars. So, you know, certainly when I was a kid, I kind of grew up in that atmosphere. And then having moved here to Illinois, we've kind of lost it. So these are the kind of stories that we kind of grew up with. So, but as far as these videos are concerned, they are available on YouTube. There's a lot of great videos available on YouTube, including a new 55-minute release from the International Dark Sky Association called Saving the Dark. So I hope some of you, when you can, will go to YouTube and look at all the IDA videos that are available. There's quite a few, especially recently with the COVID crisis. Can we go to the next? Beautiful. Well, this is a shocking slide, at least in my opinion. Certainly it was when I first saw it. What you'll see here is that this is a slide that shows the amount of light pollution back in the 1950s, 1970s, 1997, and unfortunately, only 4 years from now, forecast for 4 years from now. So, you know, when, I don't know how old you are, Jamie, but if you look at the slides for the 1970s, you can see how much more light, how much less light pollution we had. It's just overwhelming. The greatest sources of light pollution currently are street lamps and parking garages. Currently, there's 60 million, incredibly, 60 million street lamps that blaze all night. But now, more than ever, light from our homes is becoming a significant contributor to light pollution. The lights that we have on our front door stoops and on our garages. So certainly one of the purposes for this video today is to ultimately explain to most of you who I expect are here as residential homeowners, you know, what we can do to help improve the situation. So are you one of the lucky ones that can see the Milky Way? I'm gonna say that you're not. I think that's a wild guess, but I think I'm probably going to be true about that guess. Currently, 99% of us Americans are affected by light pollution, and I expect that most of us that are watching this video, this webinar currently, we can't see the Milky Way when we go outside. Our sun is one star, just a little bit of astronomy for a moment. Our sun is one star in a disc-shaped swarm of several hundred billion stars, otherwise known as the Milky Way galaxy. All the stars that we can see with the naked eye are from our Milky Way. Outside of our Milky Way, the estimate is that there's as many as 500 billion more galaxies, which is just incredible to me. Unfortunately, as I think Jamie kind of said already, on any given night, while we should be able to see thousands of stars with our naked eyes, we can see only very few. Here in Chicagoland, which I guess would include Wheaton, which is where I'm at currently, we can only see 30 to 35 stars. Only 30 to 35 stars on any given night, even the best of nights when we don't have a moon, which is just terrible. So let's go to the next slide. This would be another video that we would show. It's another example of a video that's available on YouTube. How bright is your night sky? Again, I hope you take an opportunity to see it. And then let's go to the next slide. Thanks so much, Jamie, for doing this for me. So what is light pollution? For us, Light pollution is basically three things. It basically comes in three forms: sky glow, glare, and trespass. So if we can go to the next one. This slide is an example of sky glow. Um, if you look if you look to the right as you look into the slide, you'll see more sky glow um, as compared to the left, which has less sky glow and of course more stars. Sky glow is basically, it's defined more or less as a dome of brightness that is forever over and with us. Um, for us here, sky glow is a constant. It's always present. Uh, in more rural areas, it can be just on the horizon. But again, 99% of Americans are affected by light pollution in some respects. So even if you were to go to the darkest places here in America, you would still see some measure of night glow, which is too bad. It's basically caused by the misdirected light scattering through the atmosphere, and it's especially bad on a cloudy night. It almost is overwhelming. I don't know if anybody's noticed. So let's go to the next one. Here on the ground, I think one of the most obnoxious forms of light pollution is glare, which we see daily. Some glare is very intrusive. A good example is the newer car headlamps and the newer LED lights in our fixtures at home that shine the light out instead of down. For me, especially at my old age, when I'm confronted by these headlamps that are now very bright, it's almost blinding, and it affects my ability to drive well. And this is only more recent with some of the more recent automobiles. So let's go to the next one. Glare affects us significantly. When faced with bright lights at night, our pupil constricts, it contracts, and the iris closes down for protection. As a result, everything else appears dark. 40% of Americans live in such a wash of this artificial light at night that their eyes never, ever transition to night vision, which again is just incredible to me. Normally, rural areas or whatever the case may be, in a more dimly lit situation, our pupil is going to expand. I'm sure everybody's kind of seen this at some point in time. Our pupil is going to expand and our iris will relax. And as much as 30 times more light will enter our eyes. So we're prepared to adjust and adjust well to more darkness. Let's go to the next slide. This glare situation is kind of a prime situation about why more lighting is safer. That's a myth. It's not true. And actually, most studies suggest that well-designed lighting is safer than more light. So when you think about, well, I need more light, I need more light, I need more light, well, that's not true. You're more secure when you have less light, as well as it's well-designed light. And you can kind of see, looking at this video, that when you put your hand up over the light that's glaring at us directly, you can now see the gentleman who's hiding behind the fence.
That picture is so amazing to me.
It really is. And you know, anybody who goes outside and does a similar type of experiment, I think we'll see something similar. Contrast is so important. So if you have a light that's glaring at you, that's what's going to affect your pupils and affect your iris. And you're not going to be able to see much other than that light that's shining directly at you. Whereas if that light's less intensive, of course, you can see your surroundings more generally better.
Yeah, I really think a lot of people think more light means more visibility, and this is a great illustration as to how that's just not true.
Yeah, it's very true, and hopefully everybody will take the time to kind of check it out themselves. So let's go to the next one. Uh, this is more or less consistent with the glare that we're dealing with. Light trespass is becoming a big problem. Um, our light our light should be kept on our own individual properties. Uh, nobody likes it when we spill our water over into their properties, or put our chemicals into the air and have those chemicals go over into their properties. And likewise, light should be kept on our property. I expect that probably all the people that are watching this webinar today, there might be exceptions, might have a neighbor uh, with light from your neighbor's yard, your neighbor's house, streaming and shining into your bedroom window. And that can become quite obnoxious, generally speaking. So when you're thinking about your own lights, you might want to think about how they're affecting your neighbor, and whether your neighbor is able to get a good night's sleep because of the lights that you're shining out from your house. Every living thing is affected by this historically recent explosion of light trespass at night. So, segueing into that, what are our light pollution consequences? Research is only starting to begin on this. Again, this explosion of light is relatively recent, especially with the LEDs. But the research that is being done is reporting some truly dramatic results from turtles, frogs, hummingbirds, songbirds, owls, bees, moths, fireflies, and of course us as humans. So there are many good reasons why we want to try to address light pollution. And of course, one of them is human health. And the biggest consequence on us, generally speaking, appears to be the hormone melatonin. Like all animals, we've been around for a while. Animals, certainly some animals much longer than we have. And as a consequence of that, through all these generations after generations after generations, we've developed what is known as a circadian rhythm. So remember, all those generations that came before us, most of them had dark nights, and that lighting was only a more recent development. So it's taking time for our bodies and, of course, our wildlife friends to catch up with it. Our brain controls this circadian rhythm based on signals sent by light hitting photoreceptors in the back of our eyes. Significantly, darkness triggers the production of this hormone melatonin. Melatonin plays a significant role with sleep, and recently research has shown that it also has a potentially significant effect on the effectiveness and the strength of our immune systems, which of course we're finding out now with COVID is a very important good thing to have, a good immune system. And the wavelength of light that most affects the production of melatonin is blue light, which we'll talk about a little bit more. With LEDs, which we're now using more frequently, blue is the wavelength that we're seeing more and more. So Jamie, if you can go to the next slide. This is an AMA release, American Medical Association. I thought it would be most dramatic for us to see this. That was released back in June of 2016 as LEDs became more used, generally speaking, especially with respect to street lamps and so on and so forth. So what I'd like to do, if we have a little bit of time, is I'm just going to read some of this for all of us. High intensity LED lighting designs emit large amounts of blue light that appear white to our naked eye and create worse nighttime glare than conventional lighting. Discomfort and disability from intense blue-rich LED lighting can decrease visual acuity and safety, resulting in concerns and creating road hazard. In addition to its impact on drivers, blue-rich LED lights operate at a wavelength that most adversely suppresses melatonin. This is from the American Medical Association back in 2016. Suppresses melatonin during night. It is estimated that white LED lamps, which most of us are using, unfortunately, have 5 times greater impact on circadian sleep rhythms than conventional street lamps. You might remember that for the most part, we've been using those old sodium lamps. And in our homes, we've been using the Thomas Edison lamps. Recent large surveys have found that brighter residential nighttime lighting is associated with reduced sleep times, dissatisfaction with sleep quality, excessive sleepiness, impaired daytime functioning, and obesity. And there's some recent studies suggesting that because it does affect our immune system so much, we're now suffering more significant chronic illnesses like the diabetes and also some cancers. Now, I'm just saying that with the idea that this is just recent research. I don't know that it necessarily will pan out to be true, but they are looking at these kind of things. The detrimental effects of high-intensity LED lighting are not limited to humans. Excessive outdoor lighting disrupts many species that need a dark environment. For instance, poorly designed LED lighting disorients some birds, insects, turtles, and fish species. And the U.S. national parks have adopted optimal lighting designs and practices that minimize the effects of light pollution on the environment. Recently, the National Park Service decided that one of its goals, one of the cherished goals that it's basically taken an oath to protect, is to reduce light pollution on its properties, with the idea that it does affect the wildlife that's there. And of course, they want to conserve that as best they can. So right now, the American Medical Association is recommending an intensity threshold for optimum LED lighting that minimizes the blue-rich light. It's also recommending that all LED lighting should be properly shielded, like that little lamp above my head, to minimize glare and detrimental human health and environmental effects. And consideration should be given to utilize the ability of LED lighting to be dimmed for off-peak time periods, which LED can be. It can be dimmed, which is so nice, unlike the Thomas Edisons, which really can't be dimmed. But the most important thing, I think, is to turn those lights off more than turning them on. All right, well, thanks for bearing with me as I read through that. 70 million Americans suffer from disorders of sleep and wakefulness, and with those 70 million Americans, 60% of them have chronic disorders. Some of you might have heard that they're now starting to sell supplements that include melatonin. Well, if we simply decrease our exposure to these lights at night, we wouldn't need those supplements. So what are some of the ecological impacts? I decided to focus on just two of our wildlife friends. I could have discussed impacts on many other of our wildlife friends, but I decided to just address two. So I decided to address insects and birds. I wanted to address insects specifically because without them, none of us may be here, and certainly birds may not be here. It's birds currently that appear to be most affected by our insect apocalypse. I don't know if anybody has had the chance, and Jamie, maybe you've mentioned this in some of your webinars, but there's a new book out by Doug Talamy. I don't know if anybody can see that here, but it's Nature's Best Hope. And in this book, he talks about caterpillars as being a significant contributor to what the birds eat, and especially, the young birds, the chicks. And some young birds can eat as many as 800 caterpillars a day, I believe, which is just an incredible number to me. So without all those insects, of course, there's this cascading problem that we're all going to experience. Our insects include those pollinators too that are so important to us. 60% of all invertebrates, which include insects, are nocturnal. Much is going on at night, probably more at night than it is during the day. So while we're sleeping, much of what's going on here at this planet is happening. And unfortunately, the lights that we're exposing this wildlife to, that's always, through all those generations, been used to having dark skies. Unfortunately, that lighting that we're now exposing to them is affecting them dramatically. And if we focus on moths specifically, collectively, moths pollinate 80% of the world's flora, which is just an incredible number to me. So even though we're somewhat concerned about monarch butterflies a little bit more recently, we should also be concerned on our moths who are out and about and pollinating at the night, during the night hours. For some reason, I don't know why, moths just love blue light. They love white light. So instead of mating and laying their eggs and pollinating, which we prefer they do, many of you have probably seen this, they just like to kind of circle around the lights, and they ultimately tire and they die, and we find them on the ground. So certainly we're affecting them in a significant way. And if we can just go to the next slide. We're also suffering a bird apocalypse too, for a lot of reasons, chemicals and things, and that's true with insects too. But as I just mentioned, without insects, there's going to be less birds. The effect of light on birds directly is most significant during migration. During the day, they're busy eating, so we'll see them on the ground and they're flying around and so on and so forth. But during migration, spring and fall, they're up in the air, moving from long distances from one place to another. And of course, they fueled up during the day. Well, because of the bright lights, for whatever reason, they're now becoming more and more attracted to those lights. And like the insects, they tire, the birds do, and many of them end up just falling to the ground because they can't escape this light, incredibly. And many hit lighted buildings. Currently, the estimate is that hundreds of millions of birds die a year because of striking lighted buildings at night. Hundreds of millions, which is an incredible number. So if we can go to the next slide. Another video, tons of videos out there, how to help the birds, how to help the insects, things of that nature, all available for you to watch. And if we can go to the next one. So moving away from our wildlife friends and us, there's just too much wasted light at night. Poorly designed outdoor lighting is a huge waste of energy and a huge waste of money. We want LED lights. We want to use them well. LED lights, of course, use less energy. And as a result of that, we're generating less greenhouse gases. But we could use less still than what we're using currently. The cost of current wasted outdoor lighting, LED or otherwise, is $2 billion with a B dollars annually, which again is just an incredible number to me. More importantly, all that wasted light, forget about money. More importantly, again, all that wasted light is contributing to the emissions of greenhouse gases, which affect climate, affect all of this. And certainly that's one of the more significant issues that we're aware of environmentally. So, in the minutes that we have remaining, let's talk about what we can do to make a difference. Jamie? Um, there's a few things for some of you that are a little bit more interested in maybe becoming a more significant advocate, like me, for example. You can become an International Dark Sky Delegate. Currently, I'm the only delegate in Illinois outside of Chicago. There's three of us totally altogether, and the other two are in Cook County, and one of them is with the Adler Planetarium. And actually, there's a great exhibit if we can get down to Adler Planetarium again with COVID. There's a great exhibit right now with respect to dark skies and how to address dark skies with better lighting. But if you do want to become more of an advocate, certainly you can approach your individual environmental commissions in the municipality where you live, or approach your board of trustees or whatever the case may be, and try to encourage your municipalities to pass ordinances and possibly actually becoming a dark sky community. We have one dark sky community right now in Illinois, which is Homer Glen. So you can certainly do your best to help that. And you can also encourage and participate. If we can go to the next slide.
I actually live near Homer Glen, just real quick, and I know they are so proud of this Dark Sky Community Award that they have, or their the recognition, and they're very big on these ordinances. When new businesses come in, they're putting in new parking lots, putting in lighting. They're very specific about what these businesses have to do in order to meet the regulations or meet the expectations that the community has for these dark sky ordinances, special parking lot lights and all of that. It's really kind of cool.
Yeah, and they've been doing it now for better than 10 years, which is, again, something incredible. They're devoting a lot of good time and effort to it. And Jamie, you know, the funny thing is that once you start the process and you get the ordinances in place and encourage, of course, new developments to be dark sky compliant, like a lot of other things, having sprinklers in your buildings when you build your buildings and so on and so forth is just second nature.
Right.
So once you start to educate people like we're kind of doing today, including the people that are in government and others, you know, it's funny. Everybody seems to agree that this is something we should try to address. So another thing that some people are trying to do, of course, is to develop dark sky parks. And one of the most recent dark sky parks is actually not too far away from here in Michigan. And Jamie, you were mentioning about tourism. Uh, there are now people that are advertising, come to our location because we're an international dark sky park. You know, come
Oh,
to
that's
our
cool.
location. Yeah, it is cool to see the stars and so on and so forth. And one of these places now is not too far away from us in Michigan. And I was, you know, thinking about all the great things that come with this. You know, you can go to a dark sky park and actually sit on your back like I did on my dock, and you can look at these stars and start to enjoy them a little bit more. The parks have very specific regulations with respect to how much lighting they can have and so on and so forth. So anyway, let's talk about what we can do as individuals before we wrap up here. So for light pollution, it really has a simple solution. Unlike a lot of our problems, including chemicals in lawns and climate change and things of that nature, light pollution is a pretty simple fix. So for us, one of the important things that we want to try to, I guess, bring into our vocabulary is the word Kelvin, because with our LED lights now, we don't have watts and other things like that to kind of measure the intensity of our lights and so on and so forth. We have the word Kelvin. And where we want to be is down at that 2700 number, which is warm white, as compared to up into that blue spectrum, which is the bad spectrum, daylight, which is 5500 and 6500 Kelvin. So let's move to the next slide and we'll kind of see what that looks like with respect to light bulbs. So with light bulbs, you'll see that with the 3000 Kelvin, we're getting a little bit more yellow. consistent with basically what would be the sodium lights that we're accustomed to historically. And of course, we get more into the red spectrum as we move down to 1,000. And as we move into that 5,000 range, that 4,000, 5,000 range, which unfortunately is all too much the bulbs that we're using at our own homes, we're getting into that blue light spectrum, which we want to steer clear of. So let's go to the next frame. So these next couple of frames, we'll just stay here for a minute. Basically, you can see that these are the types of bulbs that you might see at a hardware store. Now, I took these pictures at a Home Depot. I actually have some boxes here with us. Hopefully, everybody will be able to see. So, if you go to the Home Depot, for example, and some of you may choose to go elsewhere, you're going to see that you have a lot of choices with respect to bulbs that you can purchase. And unfortunately, a lot of us are choosing these daytime bulbs, which are 5,000 Kelvin, which has that great amount of blue light that we don't want to have. And we can, I actually brought, hopefully this isn't going to blind people, I actually brought a 5,000 with us, and you can see it's horribly bright. And this is kind of that glare that we were addressing before. So that's a 5,000. And then I've got also a soft white bulb. And basically, this is kind of what you're going to be looking for when you go to the hardware store. You're going to be looking for this box or a similar box. And it's sometimes labeled with soft white. And you'll see that the soft white has that 2700 Kelvin score. And if you go to the back of the box, kind of like with the little food warnings we have here with our food anymore, you'll see on the back that it actually identifies the Kelvin score in a very small little spot on these labels. So turn around the box and look for that Kelvin score. And you want to go with 2700 or less. Because of course these bulbs are removing that blue white light that has the consequences that we've discussed. And I have the 2700 here too. The reason I want you to see the 2700 is because for us, you think about a security thing and so on and so forth. It's really not that big a difference, but it's removed that blue light. So you're still going to get that nice light, only it's going to have, that blue light's going to be gone. It's the same bulb. It costs the same amount of money. So instead of putting the 5,000 in, throw the 5,000s out. You don't have to worry so much about LEDs because they don't have the mercury like the CFLs do. And replace those bulbs with the 2700. So let's go to the next slide and see what we have. You can see here that these lights, the soft white lights, the 2700 also come in flood lamps too. So again, it's just like anything else. You pick your bulb, but you're looking for the Kelvin score now. And if you can, look for lumens, which is basically a measure of brightness. Look for lumens that are 400 or less. If you got to go with something a little bit more bright, please choose something that's 800 or less. So look for the 2700 Kelvin with the 400 lumens or less, and not more than 800. Okay, so what else do we got? Shielding. Shielding is probably the most important thing that we want to do. We want to shield this light down. Many of us with our lamps in our houses, we have these kind of coach lamps, and the light is just, you can see the bulb, and that bulb is not shielding, not being shielded down, so that light's just going out into space. So again, we want to we want to try to do something like this, my crude example. I'm having a hard time finding the camera. There it is. That's shielded. That light is going to come down. It's going to focus down and not out, which incredibly, again, is what most of us are doing with our homes. And we can see in this slide on the right what dark sky compliant lighting looks like. Still very bright on that apron and for those doors, those garage doors. And on the left, we're seeing the consequences of non-dark sky compliant lighting, non-dark sky compliant fixtures, which is just, again, it's just exposing all that light out. It's all wasted. It's not doing anything good for anybody. It's glare, it's trespass. And again, it's affecting our fireflies and all our good nature friends. So what else do we have there, Jamie? This is one of the pages from the IDA website. You can see that there are examples of acceptable fixtures for outdoor lighting and examples of not acceptable. You can go to Home Depot. Again, I just keep bringing up Home Depot. And you can get fixtures that are dark sky compliant. There won't be a section at Home Depot that's specific to dark sky compliant lighting, but you'll see in another picture here a little bit more of what I mean by that. What I want to emphasize here with the outdoor lighting is a couple basics that I'd like all of you to remember. So if you've got your pencils, for us at home, we only want to use light where it's needed. All too often, we're just putting lights out there because I guess maybe it's decorative, or we just like to have lights. So let's make a good decision about where we actually need lights. And then with those lights that we choose to keep, let's only light what needs to be lighted. In other words, let's not shine that light out. Let's turn those lights off. Maybe when it's 10 o'clock, for example, if that's what makes you comfortable, or 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock on a winter evening. So let's turn those lights off when we don't need them. Minimize blue light emissions. So we just talked about those bulbs. And of course, let's be fully shielded. So light only what we need to light. Turn those lights off when we don't otherwise need them on. Again, a lot of us just keep them on because they might be decorative. Maybe put them on dimmers, maybe have motion sensors. Make sure our bulbs are those 2700 kelvins with those lumens that are 400, not more than 800 if you must. And then of course we want to make sure that those lights are shielded with good fixtures. And I think we've got another slide or two that shows a good fixture. So we can see with the slide to the right what maybe most of us have on our houses and on our garages. And that's these kind of coach lamps that just allow the light to spill out. At home in our homes, most of us have lampshades on our fixtures, on our lamps at home. And that's focusing the light down. We don't necessarily have lights that are shining inside of our homes, so why would we want them to be anything other than shaded outside? So we can see to the left that we have dark sky compliant fixtures that are shielding that light and directing that light down. And we can see that there's an example or two on our right too. Most of these fixtures are $29 or $32. Some of the nicer ones are maybe $70 or $80. But I guess the long story short is the light bulbs are maybe $7.99 a box. The light fixtures are maybe $30 a piece, maybe $50 or $60 a piece, depending on what you may prefer. So to fix the situation, to the extent that you want to have lights on at night, the fix isn't that expensive. It's a pretty easy thing to do financially.
It'd be nice if there was some kind of a certification or some kind of a, I don't know, like a little indication on the box that, hey, these are dark sky compliant, or, you know, some kind of a, I don't want to say award, but you know what I'm saying? Like something that would
Right.
say on the box that, hey, these are dark sky compliant.
Yes, and I think the International Dark Sky Association would like to encourage that slowly but surely. But remember, utilities like us to use lights at night. And there's not a lot of effort by our utilities and our municipalities and others to kind of guide us. So there hasn't been a lot of pressure on our box stores to do much about it, but it would be nice to have boxes that would show dark sky compliance, and of course fixtures that would also show dark sky compliance. You can go to the IDA website, and again, they'll have hundreds of examples for you. And the nice thing is that if you choose a fixture from the IDA website, it'll direct you to the store where you can buy it. And it'll also show you what the cost of that will be. And you can then order that fixture online.
Oh, that's
there,
nice.
there is more recently, on the part of the IDA, now a recognition, I think it's only within the past month, where homeowners, if you choose to do so, you can become dark sky certified. Your home can become dark sky certified. Now you have to do a couple things. You have to basically measure what it is that you currently have, and then measure what you're doing to change the situation to be compliant with IDA. Um, but if you want to, you can have fun with that and ultimately share with your neighbors or whomever that I'm dark sky compliant.
Nice.
The International Dark Sky Association has recognized me as being special with light pollution.
Oh,
So again, go ahead, Jamie. I'm sorry.
Kirsten says there is an IDA fixture seal of approval program that shows up frequently in online shopping sites. So I guess I just have to do more online shopping.
Yeah, and again, the IDA website is a great place to start. www.ida sky something. I think I've got it in another slide here. I hate to admit that I don't remember it. But there's another video. So I didn't show anybody pictures of the Milky Way. I didn't show anybody pictures of the stars that maybe we should be able to see here in our neighborhoods if we address light pollution. But you can certainly go to YouTube and see all those fine examples and videos that are available. So recommended, just to wrap up, I showed you the one book already, and Doug does address light pollution. It is something he does address. Very good book if you haven't read it. But another book that I've read twice now is The End of Night by Paul Bogard. And it gives you a nice history of where we are now and why we're where we are now. It's also got a lot of great stories and some good facts about astronomy and astrophysics and things of that nature. And of course, anything by Neil deGrasse Tyson. I don't have it here, but he's got kind of a astrophysics for dummies book, which is
I think
really
I have
good.
that one.
Yeah, to be able
I
to.
went to go see him talk once, and he's just a phenomenal speaker.
Well, we can't be afraid of the dark. The dark is our friend, and it's here with us 12 hours a day on average. I know that most of us are trying to get a good night's sleep, but to understand where we are in the universe, like I said, in addition to our own Milky Way galaxy, which has billions of stars, there are as many as 500 other galaxies out there that have a similar number of stars. And hearing about the Big Bang Theory and all that good stuff kind of makes us, I guess, appreciate a little bit more about how small we really are and what our effect is on our environment generally. So, all good books to read. I think that's pretty much it. So you can see now what the IDA website is, www.darksky.org. They also have a YouTube channel, like I've mentioned. And of course, they're on Facebook. And they're on Instagram. And just about every other social media format. So like them on Facebook, follow them on Facebook, and so on and so forth. I think you'll very much enjoy the trip.
Teresa wants to know the name of the book that you were holding. I think it was the Doug Tallamy one.
That is, again, I'm dysfunctional with this camera thing, but that is Nature's Best Hope. Doug is promoting basically the idea that we should all be one big national park. With our own yards, let's forget about lighting for a minute. You know, with our plants that we choose, with how we might keep our extra sticks from what we might prune from the trees, or you know, how ultimately we might clean our gardens at the end of the year, and what we might want to do with all those remnants and things of that nature. He's basically promoting the idea that we can do little things, get rid of the grass, get rid of the turf. There's so many little things that we can all do to basically make our own yards a national park, and of course more friendly to our wildlife friends.
Doug Tallamy is another phenomenal speaker, and a lot of his work informs and drives the work that we at the Conservation Foundation do. So
Yeah.
Our Conservation at Home program, again, his work was kind of the basis or the foundation of our creation of that program.
Right, and he's out there quite a bit, so you can pick him up on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
And I think he actually presented an IDA COVID kind of thing recently, as did the author of The Last Child in the Woods, you know, talking about going back and sitting on our dock when we were a kid, looking at the stars. Richard Louv, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right.
Yeah, Louv. Yeah, he's very good as well.
Yeah, he also presented, I think it was maybe a 30 or 40-minute discussion on behalf of the International Dark Sky Association. So you can see that on the IGA YouTube channel too.
All right. With that, we do have a few questions to get to here. Some of them you may have answered in your presentation, but I think they're worth repeating. Barb asked, would you recommend automatic lighting for your outside your home?
Well, you know, look, I'm not discouraging lighting up the ground. Okay, for us and for a lot of people, it's very important to light up the ground at night. What we're discouraging is lighting up your neighbor's yard, lighting up your neighbor's home, and of course having that light go up and contributing to our sky glow and things of that nature. So as far as having things on automatically, if you feel the need to have those lights, then certainly automatically might be a best option, because you're telling them to go off maybe at 8 o'clock or to go off at 9 o'clock every night. You don't have to worry about finding the light switch before you go to bed.
I feel like it's kind of a balancing act between, you know, perfect world, no lights outside at night at all. And so balancing that ideal with also the safety aspect of, you know, we want to make sure that there are lights in case somebody's trying to break into our cars or something like that. So kind of that balance between having just enough light for safety reasons while not having so much that we pollute our neighbor's yard and the sky.
Sure. And you know what, it's kind of dependent on where you live. If some of our viewers are in the city, in an area that's maybe a little bit more troubled with crime, then you know maybe you feel the need to have a few more lights. But statistically, the evidence is that more light isn't the solution. Better designed light is the solution. So you can still have your lights on in those places where you think you need them, with the idea that they're 2700 Kelvin or less. And of course those lumens, and most importantly, we want to shield that light down. You'll see from that slide, for example, that you're still getting great lighting, you're still getting the security that you want. You're just not shining that light out and up. You're keeping it on the ground where it belongs.
Along those lines, Caitlin would like to know, what's your opinion on motion sensors for lighting?
Well, again, somewhat consistent with the prior question, with respect to automation. Motion sensors are a great option. Of course, many of my neighbors have them. Now, some of them are a little bit too trigger happy, a little bit too sensitive, but it's better than having those lights on. So if you need a motion sensor, good thing about the LEDs is they are dimmable. You're not going to affect the light at all. It's not going to burn out if you dim them. And likewise, those LEDs are not going to be affected by the motion sensors. You can actually, if you're talking about automation again, you can actually set your lights so that they will dim at certain periods of time. So for whatever reason, you just got to have that light on all night. You can quiet that light down at 10. You can drop it 50%. You can drop it 60%. That's the good thing about LEDs. One of the many good things about LEDs.
And then Christy asks, are solar charged garden lights problematic as well? Like a light to border a front door?
Well, from my experience, most of those solar lamps actually are close to the ground and actually focus the light down. Oftentimes, as they guide us along sidewalks and so on and so forth. So, solar, of course, is a great option. We want to use solar as best we can because we're decreasing our greenhouse gas emissions and so on and so forth. So, again, like I've said before, if you've got the solar shining up, you've got the solar lamp shining up, think twice about focusing that light down. And if for whatever reason you don't need the solar lamp, then let's just turn it off. But solar lamps are no different than other lamps, only better, I think, ultimately.
And then Christy also asked, is there a marketing reason as to why Kelvin's not as easily advertised as the wattage?
I think it's just, well, I don't even know why they choose to use the word Kelvin, to be honest.
Familiarity, maybe.
Yeah, I'm learning a lot of things every day as I read about light pollution and, the technology that we're now confronted with. And you're not going to find that Kelvin score in your face on the packaging. It's only going to be in that little eeny spot on the back more often than not. So when you're looking at your boxes, again, like we kind of talked about before, you're going to see on the box, it's going to say soft light, or it's going to say bright light, or it's going to say daylight light, and things of that nature. So, if for whatever reason you can't find that Kelvin score, it's going to be there if you look for it. Look for the soft white. Soft white is universal typically for 2700 or less.
Okay. And then what do we do with the bulbs, LED or otherwise, that we're replacing?
Well, there are recycling opportunities. So I take all my lights, I keep them in a bag. LEDs last a long time. You shouldn't have to replace LEDs. And again, you can dim them, you can put them on motion sensors. You're not going to affect LEDs. They're going to be with you for a long time. So hopefully you're not going to have too many, in the garbage can. But me personally, I keep them in a bag in the garage, like my CFLs or any other bulb, and ultimately I take them to a recycling event, typically every year.
Yeah, I know places like Target, Home Depot, Lowe's all have
Absolutely.
recycling
Yes.
facilities for
Yeah,
them.
the Ace, not too far from my home, takes a laundry list of stuff that you could bring in for recycling.
So that's good. Most of those places do have recycling opportunities for those kinds of things.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that's all the questions that I see. I want to thank you so much, Adam, for joining us today and informing us all about dark sky issues and the associated health impacts and all of that. So thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Well, thanks for having me. And, again, as we do our best to affect light pollution, hopefully we're going to be able to go outside and we're going to be able to see a few more stars. In my neighborhood, for example, people are becoming a little bit more familiar about light pollution and they're turning off their lights at night. And when we go outside, it is darker. It is measurably darker just on our little street.
And I'm looking forward to, in a week and a half, I am going up to Wisconsin And so I will get to see those dark skies and hopefully some meteors too. Occasionally we get to
Well,
treated by some meteors as well.
it's great nature therapy. I don't know about you, Jamie, but when I go outside at night, for me, it's nature therapy, you know.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much again. And thank you all of us for joining us today. We hope to see you back again on Monday when we switch gears and start talking about streams. So
We'll
thank you, everybody.
go dark, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.